see, my elementary school was crazy. We used to play this game called Booty Tag. Booty Tag consisted of grabbing booty. There was none of that tag, you're it. The goal was to keep your booty safe and not get caught. Contrary to popular belief, this game was for the girls. You see, in elementary school, all the boys thought that girls had cooties. So if you were a boy and you got tagged by a girl on the booty, nobody was gonna mess with you because you have cooties. So the whole playground was just girls going crazy, grabbing booty. I remember one time this kid named MJ fell on the ground and they just started kicking his booty. He couldn't walk for the rest of the day. Since I was really fat, I couldn't run away when they were trying to tag me. So I ended up becoming really good friends with this girl named Sierra. She was my only friend because I had cooties since I got tagged. Now me and Sierra became really close. Like we was 8 or 9 years old sharing trauma stories. One day she asked me, yo, do you want to see something? Alright, so here's part 2 on how I got suspended in elementary school. So Sierra looks at me and she asks me, yo, do you want to see something? I'm like, yeah, show me. She says, look under the table. She literally pulls her pants down and she shows me her you know what. And it literally just became a thing we do every day. The girls at the table would look out for the teacher. I would stick my head under the table and take a peek. So everything was going smoothly. Then boom, Jerry hit. Now Jerry was another loser just like me. He used to get tagged all the time in booty tag. So naturally, me and him became really good friends. What I loved about Jerry is that he always had my back on the playground. If anybody tried to mess with me, Jerry would have been there to knock you out. So I tell Jerry about the Sierra situation and he says that he wants to see. So randomly one day he just sits at my table and he takes a peek with me. Things get crazy after that because Jerry stands up and looks at the girl and asks them if they want to see something. Alright, I'm going to be posting part 3 really soon, but if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram, like my picture.
Am I the asshole for inviting my girlfriend on an expensive vacation and expecting her to pay all of her share? My girlfriend and I, my parents, my brother and his wife all went on vacation in another country a week ago. My girlfriend knew this trip was coming up and took on a second job waitressing on the weekends for several months to get ready for it. My brother and I were the ones who did most of the planning of the itinerary, although we did ask everyone else for input. For background, I make around $150,000 as an IT consultant. My girlfriend is a teacher making around $45,000. My parents are pretty affluent as well as my brother and sister-in-law. We have always split things 50-50 in the 2 years we have been together. There were a few times on the vacation where she did not go on the outings with us, wine tasting, scuba diving, etc. She also would only eat 2 meals a day, stating simply that she was on a budget. My family does favor more high-end expensive places. My parents thought it was very strange that she only eats 2 meals a day, although she normally eats 3. I mentioned how I heard her stomach growling one night and said I was concerned about her having an eating disorder. When we got back home, I asked her why she skipped out on several of the outings and only ate 2 meals a day. She got teary-eyed. Am I the asshole for telling the truth at my best friend's wedding during my toast? I'm a 30-year-old male and my best friend got married last week. I just bought a house and my wife is expecting our son in November, so I let him know I was limited in what I could contribute financially. But I did tell him I would try my best. So I went to the bachelor party in Miami, I rented the tux, and paid for mine and my wife's dinner at the rehearsal dinner. I also had a gift of $300 that I was going to give them, but we will get to why I didn't. His fiancée at the time would text me multiple times a day with updates. Fine. I didn't always respond, and it got to the point where if I didn't respond at least once a day, I'd get a call from my buddy. She texted me for the following reasons. 1. My wife was not allowed to talk about our pregnancy at all. She didn't want anyone to focus on that more than her, the bride. 2. She was not going to order any special food for my wife. No one asked her to. My wife was fine with whatever she was going to be served. 3. I was not helping the groom enough. He had to help her with favors, seating charts, and programs, so I had to help him with those things according to her. 4. She said if I was a true best man, I would... Am I the asshole for inviting my girlfriend on an expensive vacation and expecting her to pay all of her share? My girlfriend and I, my parents, my brother and his wife all went on vacation in another country a week ago. My girlfriend knew this trip was coming up and took on a second job waitressing on the weekends for several months to get ready for it. My brother and I were the ones who did most of the planning of the itinerary, although we did ask everyone else for input. For background, I make around $150,000 as an IT consultant. My girlfriend is a teacher making around $45,000. My parents are pretty affluent as well as my brother and sister-in-law. We have always split things 50-50 in the 2 years we have been together. There were a few times on the vacation where she did not go on the outings with us, wine tasting, scuba diving, etc. She also would only eat 2 meals a day, stating simply that she was on a budget. My family does favor more high-end expensive places. My parents thought it was very strange that she only eats 2 meals a day, although she normally eats 3. I mentioned how I heard her stomach growling one night and said I was concerned about her having an eating disorder. When we got back home, I asked her why she skipped out on several of the outings and only ate 2 meals a day. She got teary-eyed.
What's one really bad thing you did as a child that you kept secret for your entire life and didn't tell nobody? I'll go first. I got a lot of stories like this, but this is just one of them. So my mama used to put me in daycare, and in my daycare we used to do field trips, and we went to the YMCA. So while we were in the pool, this one white kid comes up to me and he asked me, like, why are you black? And I was kind of embarrassed, but I wasn't mad at the kid. I was more embarrassed than I was mad. And I told him that my parents painted me every single day. And I was thinking back at the time when I scraped my knee and the skin came off and there was like no blood. It was just bone. But I didn't know that it was bone. I thought that I was just white underneath. So I was like, it's true. Like I can peel my skin off and prove it. When I did that, I peeled skin off my finger and it was a lot of skin and I started bleeding really bad. So the water started getting red and the daycare people tried to get everybody out the water like there was something going on. And then once everybody was out of the water, one of the daycare people go, I'm so sorry, everybody. I lost my tampon. I need to find it. Okay, so what happened was pretty self-explanatory, but I can make up.
Honestly, I am so embarrassed to be telling this story, and if you're a makeup artist, don't come for me, please. One time I had a client who was a friend of a family member who reached out to me just a couple of days before the dance asking me if I could do her daughter's homecoming makeup. Let me just point out that at this time I had already graduated high school and I'd been out for a minute. So it had been a while since I had done somebody's prom or homecoming makeup. I had mostly moved on to doing photo shoots, some weddings, or just coming up with crazy looks to do on myself for fun. So when I asked what type of look she wanted, she sent me a look from Pinterest that I had literally seen the exact reference photo for probably like 50 times. I was like, great, this is going to be super easy, nothing to worry about here. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. So on the day of the dance, I go over to my client's house. One of the first things I do whenever I do someone's makeup is make sure that I have a foundation and concealer shade that will match their skin tone. And this girl was abnormally pale. She was absolutely beautiful and her skin literally reminded me of porcelain, like a porcelain doll. But even my lightest foundation and concealer shades were too dark for her skin. If you've ever done anyone's makeup, even a friend, you know that it is so embarrassing to not be able to match their skin tone. Luckily though, I was used to having to come up with very creative solutions to very sticky situations. Like I said before, I was doing this girl's makeup for her homecoming dance, and homecoming is usually in the fall, and this one was right around Halloween. So I did happen to have some face paint in my makeup kit. And here's where the first really embarrassing thing happened. I didn't know what else to do, so I literally took white face paint and mixed it with my foundation to create a perfect match for her skin tone. It did work and it looked really good on her skin. So after I used this face paint foundation mixture to put all over her face, I go in and I start doing the eye look. This was also during COVID, so I was wearing a face mask, and as I progressed through her eye look, it started getting really difficult for me to breathe. At first, obviously, I thought it was because
Am I the asshole for giving my soon-to-be ex-husband an ultimatum in regards to custody? Look, I know the title already sounds bad, but hear me out. A little background. Me, 32 female, and my husband, 32 male, are currently separated and currently work in different cities. He's in New York and I'm in Massachusetts. We have 2 kids together, an 8-year-old boy and 5-year-old girl. Some of my family has a mild to extreme allergy to cannabis. Both of my kids are allergic, but my son's is anaphylactic severe, medically tested. My husband and his new girlfriend are staying together because she lost her job and apartment. I am pregnant. It happened pre-separation and I found out after. So what happened is that my husband has a new girlfriend, 28-year-old female, and she's a long-time stoner. He has explained our kids' allergies to her and how she can't smoke when the kids are with him. After arguing, she decided that when the kids are with him, she'll stick to edibles, so it's less likely they'll breathe it in. The only thing is, she believes that we are making up the weed allergy. She's extremely convinced that I'm anti-weed and I'm trying to convince my kids that they are allergic so that they never try it. A couple of weeks back, the kids were at his house and he was at work, so his girlfriend was watching them.
I'm a 32-year-old woman who can never go back to my new dentist after 2 visits because I'm an idiot. My dentist is a very nice and professional man. Our first appointment was going pretty smoothly until he made some innocuous remark about us being strangers. My immediate reply was, "Oh, you're not a stranger. You've been inside of my mouth for 20 minutes. I did not intend to make a joke. His face turned red, and he was clearly embarrassed, but continued on like a true professional. And we were probably both relieved when the appointment was over. I had my second dentist appointment today. I actually mentally prepared myself to be a model patient who didn't say anything weird. He had been working in my mouth for about 5 minutes when he started to seem really uncomfortable or something. His face was red and he was breathing a little heavier. I was a bit concerned and also confused. Like, how could I have embarrassed him this time? I had hardly spoken. So he keeps working in there, and then I realize what the hell is happening. My dentist was wearing grape-flavored gloves. I had been absent-mindedly licking his fingers the whole time.
Awkward.
No. But why was he breathing heavier?
This just might be the craziest spring break story you've ever heard. Me and 14 of my friends decided to go to Cabo for spring break when we were in college. We rented an Airbnb and thought everything was going to be so much fun. But on the first night, there was already a couple of my friends that were too tired to go out, so we just decided to split up. Half of my friends stayed at the house and half of us went out to a bar. The bar we ended up going to was right on the water, and as we're sitting there eating our food, a yacht pulls up. And I don't mean like a small yacht, I mean like a huge party yacht. There was little dinghy boats bringing people to and from the yacht. My friend that spoke Spanish went over and started talking to one of the boat taxi drivers. He said that if we wanted to, we could all jump on his boat and he would take us out to the yacht. Since it was spring break, of course I couldn't pass up on this opportunity, so I started running towards his boat to jump on because he was screaming for us to hurry. I was in such a hurry to make sure that I got on that boat, I didn't even look back to see if my friends were behind me. By the time that I realized none of my friends had come with me, I was already halfway to the yacht.
I'm a senior in high school and I have a stepsister who is the same age as me. My mom and her dad have been married since we were 10. We both started school again yesterday. A couple of hours into my online class, my mom comes to my room to talk to me. She said that since I have more than enough money to put myself through college, how would I feel about sharing some of that money with my stepsister who does not have enough money? I lost my paternal grandparents 3 years after I lost my dad, so I inherited a lump sum of money. My mom and stepdad had saved some money, but a few crappy things happened to our house, so now apparently there's not enough for my stepsister to go to college. But I don't feel responsible to put her through college. I also don't feel like my paternal relative's money that's now mine should be used for her. She was nothing to them, and if we're being real, we have no relationship beyond living in the same house either. I told my mom no. She said she was disappointed in me. Later on that night, my mom and her husband pulled me into the kitchen to discuss some things. They told me I'm being selfish and that she's my sister. I said even if she is my sister, it's not my job to help her through college, and that's my money, and it will not be used for something I do not approve of. Apparently, I'm the asshole for refusing, according to them. So it got me thinking, should I help my stepsister out?
Am I the asshole for not giving my brother my college fund after he was cut off for coming out? My 18-year-old brother recently came out as gay, and my grandparents, who are homophobic AF, like they don't even hide it, didn't take it well. My parents obviously support him coming out, but my grandparents have cut him off financially. See, for all of us, my grandparents set aside separate college funds over the years. We don't necessarily have to use it for school, which was my case. I'm 27 years old and I had a son my second year of college, so I decided to get into an apprenticeship program instead and use that money for baby expenses and to save up for him. My girlfriend and I are managing well working full time. We don't touch that money at all unless it's for him. My brother knows I still have this money and he's asking me to help invest in his future since it was always a given that our grandparents would pay for his college. Our parents are well off financially, so he wouldn't receive much in terms of financial aid, but they don't want to cover for college tuition because he's an adult now. My sister already graduated and used what was left of the money to put a down payment on a house. I'm really his only option and he's desperate. Because I'm refusing, my brother is calling me a traitor and it's not fair for him to be cut off like this. Am I the asshole for ruining a pregnancy announcement by telling the woman she may have taken the wrong test? My husband and I recently invited 8 friends for lunch and we were asked if we could also include a new couple, Doug and Sasha. We have never met them before, but everyone who was invited had, so we said sure. At one point during dinner, Sasha needed to use the restroom, and I told her to use the master suite since the other bathroom was occupied. I was helping my husband in the kitchen when Sasha came out of the room bawling and holding something in her hand. At first, I thought she hurt herself, but she said something to Doug that caused him to drop to his knees, cry, and begin kissing her stomach. All of our friends began screaming, jumping, and crying. It was insane. Finally, Sasha tells my husband and I that she is pregnant. Of course, we congratulate both of them, and then I give them a bag to put the pregnancy test in. I will admit, I did find it odd that she brought a pregnancy test and took it at a complete stranger's house, but I didn't say that out loud. Once everyone sat down to eat, Sasha looked over to me and said, "I hope you don't mind that I used one of your pregnancy tests. I just saw them and I had to." Looking at her confused, I responded, "I don't have any pregnancy tests." Sasha says, "Yes, in your drawer." I don't have any pregnancy tests. Sasha says yes, in your drawer. I asked Sasha if she meant the blue box in the back of my lower left drawer that was closed. She seemed to realize I was pointing out that she basically snooped around, and she sheepishly said the box said pregnancy for pregnancy tests. I said, Sasha, the brand is Pregmate, and those are ovulation tests. I do not own pregnancy tests. Did you take an ovulation test? Her husband freaked the absolute F out at me and said his wife was not an idiot and can read a box. He insisted Sasha get the test out now and show me that I'm wrong. Sasha refused, saying she didn't need to prove anything to a complete stranger and insisted they leave immediately. One of the couples thought that Doug and Sasha acted completely ridiculous, while the other 3 couples thought I should have pulled Sasha aside to discuss my concerns and said I was the asshole for saying something in front of everyone. Honestly, the whole situation caught me off guard and everything happened so quickly. The whole thing was bizarre and confusing. I just didn't have the time to put the pieces together mentally before asking about the ovulation tests. Also, I found out later through one of my friends that Sasha did take the ovulation test and she is not pregnant. November last year, I gave birth to our first baby. It's the first in my family and the 6th in my husband's family. It's important to say that all 6 kids are boys and my mother-in-law is in some sick, crazy girl phase. Ever since we made the announcement, my mother-in-law convinced herself that I was pregnant with a girl. I told her that once we knew the gender, she would be the first person to know. Lo and behold, it was a boy. We told my mother-in-law we were having a boy, but she was still convinced it was a girl. She told the whole side of the family that it was a girl, and I corrected her, but she told them I was just annoyed because I wanted a boy first. I wanted a healthy baby. I didn't give a damn about the sex. She told them that we are naming the girl after her mom, which we will never do because my hubby hates his grandma. When the baby shower gifts started to come, I noticed a lot of things that wasn't in the register, like embroidered things with the grandma's name on it. Well, the baby was born, and imagine the surprise, it was a boy, just like we have been telling everyone. The problem, for them at least, is that now the baby has plenty of girl clothes that we plan on putting on our son, specifically for his family video calls and for pictures with them. After Saturday, my mother-in-law gave us a call and started screaming because
I think we killed a girl. Story time. When I was young, me and the neighborhood kids used to love playing Truth or Dare. And there was this one girl who used to play with us, and we're gonna name her Peggy. Now, Peggy was one of those kids who was not afraid to do any dare. One time somebody dared her to pierce her own ear using a very sharp pencil, and she did it. Like, she took Truth or Dare very seriously. Well, the last time we played Truth or Dare with Peggy, things got pretty wild. Like, someone dared me to crush a worm with my bare feet, and yes, I did it, it was gross. But when it got to Peggy's turn, she was dared to do something deadly. Somebody, not me, but somebody, picked up a piece of glass off the street and dared Peggy to swallow it. And because Peggy took the game way too seriously, she did it. The next thing you know, she started coughing up blood, we all freaked out, she runs home, and we never see her again.
Story time about the client who asked me to do her entire service for free. This client just so happens to be the first client that I've ever found on TikTok. Not long after I started making makeup artist story times, I had a few people reach out to me and ask if I would do their makeup. More specifically, if they could schedule an appointment to have their makeup done. We're gonna call this one in particular client Karen, and you'll see why in a second. Karen DM'd my Instagram account saying that she was a TikTok follower and that she had been trying to get a hold of me to schedule an appointment for her daughter. Her daughter was a senior in high school about to attend her senior prom. She told me that her daughter told her that she had been following me on TikTok since the beginning of my Makeup Artist Storytime series. She explained that she was a huge fan and that it would be great if there was any way that I would be able to do her daughter's senior prom makeup. I started by first asking her if she had a specific date or time in mind. Karen gave me all the details of her daughter's prom, and then I realized that she lives halfway across the country. That's when I told Karen that I was extremely appreciative for the opportunity, but there is no way that
This is why things are never as they seem. Once there was a man who didn't want to get married because he didn't want to spend money on anyone else. He thought that if he got married, he would have to pay for his wife's food, clothes, and other items, which he didn't want to do. However, one day he came across a beautiful young woman who oddly never ate a single thing. He thought this was perfect. He wouldn't have to pay for her food and she could be his wife. He quickly asked her to marry him. But of course, things are not as they seem. He noticed that his supply of food was disappearing even though he never saw his wife eat. So one day he decided to spy on her. And what he saw was terrifying. He saw his wife's hair part in the back, revealing a huge mouth on the back of her head. Her skull split open and the mouth was unnaturally wide with huge teeth. Then he watched as his wife's hair twisted into a long strand, grasped handfuls of food and shoved it into the mouth on the back of her head. When she noticed her husband, she attacked him. He managed to get away and hide in the mountains. Weeks later, when he got the courage to return, he found his wife gone and all of his food taken. The man never married again. Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of a girl who woke up one day to the police knocking at her door, but someone here is hiding something. And all the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So this girl's been living with an older man for 3 months, until one day out of nowhere the police showed up to their door and took her away. They brought her to a restaurant and asked her to order anything that she wanted. She got a burger and fries, then she asked for something cold to drink. They gave her iced tea. Then one of the officers said he's going away for a while. The old man was charged with 14 offenses. When the police were done chatting, they drove the girl home, and everyone was crying when she got there. What really happened here? Can you solve this mystery?
So I have this really funny story time about how someone attempted to rob me at the bank. So the customer comes in, he comes to my station, and he passes me this note. First sign I should have known something was wrong. He passes me the note and I open it and it says, give me $5,000 or I'm gonna go NWA on your ass. I didn't know what NWA meant. So I look at him and I'm like, what does NWA mean? And then he just looks at me, he's like, just give me the $5,000. So then I ask him, I say, please swipe your debit card. Like at this point, I should have known he didn't have an account with us, but I'm like, sir, like I can't give you money unless you swipe your card. Like I can't access your account. You don't have your ID. Like you have to swipe your card. So then he looks at me. He's like, I don't have an account here. You have to take it out of 50 Cent, Kanye West account. I don't care whose account you got to take it out of. You got to give me $5,000. So I look at my manager. And after my manager's like, if you don't have an account here, we can't help you. He looks at me dead in the eyes and says this. If you don't give me $5,000, I'm going to go home, grab my gun, come here and shoot you both in the...
Am I the asshole for fake sleeping all night to see if my wife is lying? The past couple of months, my wife has been complaining about our cats. She's been claiming that the cats wake her up constantly and that she's frustrated every night that she has to get up and open the door for the cats. Or the cats keep making noises, or the cats keep jumping on her. It got me to the point where she started saying she wants me to get rid of them. I've told her I've never seen or heard any of this, but she claims I sleep through it all. She kept telling me that she was getting less and less sleep and kept acting aggressive, blaming lack of sleep from the cats and that if I didn't get rid of them, she'd leave me. I legitimately started considering giving the cats to my sister until I noticed something. One morning, she claimed she had gotten up multiple times throughout the night to help the cats. She listed a bunch of times. I thought it was weird because I had been up until 4 a.m. and she claimed that she got up at 1 a.m. to open the door for them and a few times around 3 a.m. because they were meowing and jumping on her. I was in the bedroom the entire time while she slept, and I know none of this happened. Things weren't adding up, so I decided to run a test. I waited until she said she was going to bed, then I let the cats out of our bedroom. I lowered my phone brightness and faked going to sleep. I just lay there in my bed for the entire night. An hour later, she matched and messaged me. I decided to set up a date to a fancy restaurant downtown for Sunday afternoon and told her we could head to my place afterwards. She was completely receptive and said she'd meet me there. She told our parents she was hanging out with one of her track friends and spending the night at her place. After she left, I told our parents everything and showed them all of the messages. They were pissed, and I suggested we all go to the restaurant. My dad and I just went instead and saw her sitting at a table alone, all dolled up waiting for Jim. My dad went up to her and said, Jim's not coming, and she screamed and asked what we were doing there. I told her there was no Jim and that it was effing stupid of her to try to be meeting grown men on Tinder at that age. My dad harped onto that and lectured her about lying and meeting strange men on the internet and being so willing to go back to a stranger's place. We were a bit loud, so people were starting to look at us, and my sister eventually bursted into tears and ran out. I told my friends in a group chat the situation, and they all agreed it was hysterical, except 2 of my female friends who said I was an asshole and cruel to her. My other friends defended me and said she needed to be taught a lesson. Now I've been wondering who's right and maybe if I went too far.
Recently, my 54-year-old dad and my 52-year-old mom have divorced. This wasn't a surprise to me though. However, a week after the divorce was finalized, my father got a new girlfriend named Sophia who's 26. I wasn't mad, but I felt like it was a little too soon. At the end of the day though, it's not my business, but I told my dad I couldn't accept her as my new stepmother as it was too soon and she was only 2 years older than me. He said this was okay, but he hopes in the future I can come around to it. Eventually, my 3-year-old twins met my dad's girlfriend and they didn't like her. They were asking me stuff like who is she and other questions. After she noticed my kids' favoritism towards their biological grandmother, she yelled at me and told me I was raising my kids wrong because they don't treat her like that. I calmly told her that they would eventually come around, but she wouldn't listen and kicked me out of my dad's house. A few weeks later, my husband and I found out that I was pregnant. We wanted to wait a while to tell my family that the next family dinner, I told everyone the news. Everyone was happy for me and my husband, but especially my dad's girlfriend. Keep in mind, she still hadn't apologized for her outburst, and I still felt like I couldn't accept her, so when she started saying things such as, I can't wait for my grandbaby, I felt a little uncomfortable, but assumed she just liked babies. That was until she decided that if it was a girl, then we would call her Elia after her grandmother, or if it was a boy, then Samuel after her granddad. I flat out told her no, as I had never met them, and she blew up in anger. She's like,
Am I the asshole for catfishing my underage sister on Tinder and humiliating her in order to teach her a lesson? Last week, I was using my younger sister's phone because mine was dead and I needed to call a friend. Dialing my friend's number, I saw a Tinder notification of some dude messaging her. Immediately, I asked her why she's on Tinder. She's 17, and she grabbed her phone back and said, none of your business. I decided as her big brother that I wanted to have a little fun with this. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she's just swiping for fun. So I didn't want to go straight to ratting her out to our parents. To test if she was just using for fun, I decided I was going to make a Tinder profile of someone else and message her to see if she responds. I asked a good friend of mine from back in college, who happens to be a male model, if he'd mind if I used his pictures and explain the situation. He thought it would be hilarious and told me to go for it. I created the account, set my age to 22, set my swipe radius to a mile, and quickly found my sister's account. Her age was set to 19. Lie, she's still in high school. So I was definitely more suspicious of her now. I super liked, and less than an hour later she matched and messaged me. I decided to set up a date to a fancy restaurant downtown for Sunday afternoon and told her me and my daughter used to be best friends. We did everything together and she truly was the light of my life. But things started to change on her teens. Moodiness, lashing out, lies, etc. I just thought it had to do with her age and that she would grow out of it. I really tried everything. Family therapy, long talks about how much I loved her. None of it worked. She would either roll her eyes back or spit more of her venom. My husband works really long hours and isn't much help, to be honest. My husband is white and I am black and my daughter is mixed, but she looks white and she really takes after her father. I really don't know what I did wrong, but her dislike for me began to become pure hatred. She would question all the time how someone like me could be her mother, when she was white and I was black. At some point, she demanded a DNA test, and I said sure, if she paid for it, and she was not pleased with the results. She is 17 now and began dating this white boy, and she is head over heels for him. She refused to let me meet him and told me that having a jobless N-word for a mother truly ashamed her. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I don't think I've ever experienced such pain. Long story short, I couldn't take her abuse anymore and decided to go back to my family in Cuba. My daughter couldn't be bothered. My boyfriend has a longtime female friend who's clearly into him, and I don't know what to do. This is gonna sound like the typical insecure girlfriend, but I promise it's not like that. My boyfriend and I have been together for over 6 months, and he's really great. He has a friend that he's had for years who is a girl. Normally, I'm not the type to be all like, you're not allowed to hang out with a single girl alone, but I'm considering telling my boyfriend that he's not allowed to hang out with this girl alone. This girl is obviously so into him and she definitely wants me to know she's coming for him. She keeps saying stuff like, you don't know him like I do yet. Or, we used to go to that place together all the time long before you guys started dating. She also had cute pet names for him and I didn't like it, and as soon as I heard it, I told my boyfriend I didn't like it and he made her stop. Oh my gosh, Josh, remember when we went on a hike, just the two of us? That was the best day. I asked her straight up if she was into him, and her response pissed me off. She was like, I know it's intimidating how close he and I are, but don't worry, you're the girlfriend, I'm just a friend, right? With a smug smile on her face. Am I the asshole for letting my daughter wear an expensive dress to my sister's house? Me, my husband, and our 15-year-old daughter, Georgia, went to my sister's place for lunch this past weekend. Georgia is very bright. She completed her exams early and is now studying more advanced material. She's a big fashionista, a lot more than I was at that age. She loves pretty clothes and outfits, and we're happy to get her as much as we can, provided she behaves well and keeps up the good grades. The lunch with my sister was fairly casual, but Georgia wore her new pink dress. My sister isn't as well off as we are, unfortunately, and she is raising 3 children on her own, and her job isn't a high-paying one. In the past, she asked me if Georgia could tone down her outfits when we come to visit because she doesn't want her kids being upset because they can't afford things like that. I do get my sister's point, but it's not down to me to police what Georgia wears. I've spoken to Georgia about it, but I left the final decision to her. Anyway, so we went for lunch and Georgia ended up getting into an argument when my sister's 13-year-old daughter Lucy asked about the dress and where it was from. Georgia answered that it didn't matter because Lucy couldn't afford it anyway. We told Georgia to shut up as soon as the comment left her lips, but it—
Story of the time that we got caught sipping at Christian camp. So every other year during winter break, my parents made me go to this Christian camp. I quickly made friends with these 3 girls and 2 guys. The older we got, the more boring obviously it became, but we were all forced to go. So I'm pretty sure this was when I was maybe 16 or 17, and this year my friend was 22. So she had brought us a clear one and a dark one, and she brought them in water bottles. So we started exploring the entire camp. It was a pretty big camp. And we ended up finding this basement that had a pool table, a mini fridge, a TV. It was actually pretty cool. It was kind of like meant to be, you know what I mean? We're like, wow, we found this really cool chill spot. So the day we decided to sip was actually the last night of the camp. And my friend, who was 22, her parents ended up coming that last day because there was also meetings for adults. So anyway, we're all getting ready in her room, and she told her parents, don't go in my suitcase because it's really messy and I don't want you guys to judge me. Thinking that that would be not suspicious, but obviously it made her parents suspicious. And that same day, we had this really story of the time I got caught sipping at Christian camp, part 2. So we're all chilling in this basement, getting ready to sip. So we all sit in a circle, hold hands, bow our heads, close our eyes, and we pray to Jesus Christ Almighty that we do not get caught. And like I said, we had these Bible studies. And earlier that day, we talked about Jesus turning water to wine. We also talked about doing the right thing, that God sees all. So anyway, we had our miniature cups, and all of us at the same time said, hoop, down the hatch. And we all quickly realized that we did not sip what we thought we were. And you know what we all thought? That this was the doing of the Lord. Jesus must have turned our sippity sips into mango Snapple and water. We all started freaking out. We started praying again, being like, please, Lord, just turn it back into what we wanted it to be. So we got back to my friend's room and her parents were like, so you guys want more mango Snapple?
Am I the asshole for not leaving with my newborn twins and toddler while my sister had a meeting? I, 23 female, have a 2-year-old son and 2-month-old twins. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my sister, 25 female, who is in grad school, has been staying with us while her apartment building gets fumigated. She had a meeting with one of her professors to talk about some stuff regarding a project and set her laptop up in the kitchen. It's worth noting that the kitchen is right off the children's play area / bedroom, and she also has a bedroom all to herself that has a desk and the Wi-Fi is decent in it. About 5 minutes into her meeting, my 2-year-old, who was playing with his toy trucks, got hurt and started crying. He wasn't even having a tantrum, just crying because he got hurt. After a few minutes, my sister excuses herself from her meeting for a moment and yells at me to take the kids out of the house and that she needs total silence. I told her I wasn't going to take my 3 small children out by myself.
Storytime from Anonymous Part 2. So I took the note that she gave me and I went to go find the class. I couldn't find the class anywhere, which was weird, because I knew where all the classes were. So I went back to the cafeteria to tell my teacher that I didn't know where the class was. And when I got there, everybody was gone. It was empty and I couldn't find anybody. After lunch, I normally go to recess, so I went outside to see if they were out there. Still, nobody, not even the older kids. Like for part 3! Storytime from Anonymous. When I was in 3rd grade, Friday the 13th was a huge thing. All my friends would always talk about it. And then one day it was Friday, and what do you know, it was Friday the 13th. So everyone was going crazy and spreading rumors about that day. And I am a huge scaredy cat, so I try not to think anything of it. And I didn't really listen to any of the rumors. Until at lunchtime when things started to get super weird and scary. I remember my teacher asking me to go give a note to another class.
My sister is 27 and I'm 18. We lost our dad a year ago. He was our only parent as our mom was never in mine or my sister's life. Our dad left a good chunk of inheritance money for me and my sister. She instantly blew her inheritance on luxury items like new cars and renovated her house. My brother-in-law wouldn't allow me to stay with them, so I'm currently living with my aunt at her house. I want to become a doctor and haven't picked my branch yet, but I know it's going to be expensive. My sister and I haven't been close ever since she got married to her chronically ill husband who was allowed to make backhanded comments about my dad and mock his illness, then make a scene at his funeral. This was all allowed because he's ill and shouldn't be held accountable for his behavior. I've distanced myself, but recently my sister kept visiting and venting about my brother-in-law's condition. He's been in and out of the hospital for heart problems and in need for a surgery. She brought up my inheritance money several times, but I ended up cutting the conversation short whenever it was mentioned. She then straight up asked if I could help pay for her husband's surgery and she'd pay it back in less than a year. I felt uneasy because if I give her the money, then there's no guarantee she'll pay it back before it's time to pay for my tuition. I'm taking a gap year, but I know my sister can't pay that much back and I felt like it would be risking my future. When I refused to help, she had a meltdown at my aunt's house calling me heartless and cruel with no empathy. She said that her husband's health should be priority and I needed to help her because
My family, who is extremely homophobic, ended up kicking me out and replacing me with my best friend. My family is absolutely awful when it comes to topics about the LGBTQ plus community. Literally any mention of it and they get extremely upset. Which sounds like they're suppressing something to me, but I had a friend that we can call Katie and my family absolutely adored her. Every Christmas they would buy her presents. She would spend family movie night with us and they honestly treated her like she was the favorite daughter. So one day I made the decision to come out and I decided to talk to Katie about it. She was literally so supportive and so respectful that I gained the confidence to talk to my family about it. Bad idea. Hell striked and they immediately kicked me out of the house. So I found myself on a schedule of switching from couch to couch at different friends' houses. One particular night that was really hard for me, I decided to go visit them. I was missing them and also hopeful that they might accept me back in. And as I approached the house, my best friend was over there. She was playing games and doing family movie night with them, and so I decided to knock on the door. I burst into tears and went off on all of them.
The absolute audacity.
Later, my best friend texted me saying that she had a secret. Follow my Insta.